Apostates being executed, the West's fault. Blasphemers getting lynched, definitely the West's fault. Child marriages happening, the West somehow caused that too. Women having fewer rights than cattle, colonialism's to blame. Honor killings must be a Western conspiracy. Islamic scholars giving absurd fatwas, Western propaganda made them do it. Sectarian wars that started 1400 years ago, the CIA went back in time. Slavery still exists in some places, you guessed it, the West. Religious minorities facing persecution, Zionist plot, obviously. Countries rich in oil but still suffering, the West stole all the prosperity. Polygamy justified as a divine command, it's the West that made us do it. Brutal hudud punishment still being enforced, somehow Western values still at fault. Introspection is a valuable skill. It means being able to look into your own actions and connect it to outcomes. But a certain community, the Muslim community, seems to constantly blame the West for everything. Blaming everything on others might be convenient, but it means you're doomed to never improve. Without self-reflection, there can be no progress. This is why in many objective measurements, the Muslim community has fallen behind. Who pays the price? Muslims, of course, and by extension, the rest of the world. How do we end up in this situation? Let's get into it. The Muslim world was a utopia of peace and prosperity until the West came along. If only we practice Islam even more and keep blaming them for everything, we'd solve all our problems overnight, right? This is what some Muslim scholars want you to believe. All we need to do is wake up for Fajr, pray harder, follow the Sunnah. But really, more seriously, what happened? Islam happened. This tweet by Ahmed Hassan writes, "The crimes that are taking place in Syria today do not represent Muslims. Islam has nothing to do with these actions and crimes. Allah, the Quran, and Muhammad have nothing to do with these heinous crimes, violence, and cruelty." And then I had a Syrian ex-Muslim tell me, "Abdullah, I'm in Syria right now. Every Sunni in my surrounding is calling for jihad against Alawites. They're in mosques speaking loud and clear. Even my own mother is celebrating the killings. I can't believe that I trusted these people at some point. I am beyond terrified." These two tweets show you the wide discrepancy between Muslims who want to deny the reality of Islam versus the ones that can see it clear as day. This video is not about the awful things that are happening in Syria right now, which is genuinely terrible, but rather about how the West is the scapegoat for all of the problems. It's for people like Mehdi Hassan who say the Taliban aren't Islamic. If you're new here, let me introduce myself. I'm Abdullah and I've been speaking and writing about Islam for about 9 years now since I left Islam. I'm passionate about this because I'm convinced Islam is false and I want people to know how harmful the system is. Let's start with sectarianism and internal divisions. From the very first day after Muhammad's death, Islam has been plagued by internal divisions. What started as a power struggle over leadership eventually spiraled into centuries of bloodshed and battles over belief. Instead of focusing on progress, much of the Muslim world remains stuck in sectarian disputes that drain energy, resources, and intellectual potential. Religious fights between Shias and Sunnis, then between Sunnis and Ahmadis, who Sunnis claim are not even Muslim. Pakistan's constitution officially excommunicated Ahmadis, making it illegal for them to call themselves Muslim. Ahmadi mosques have been burned down and the literature is banned. Instead of allowing religious diversity, mainstream Muslims focus their energy on suppressing and excluding Ahmadis rather than solving real-life problems. ISIS specifically targets Shias, calling them worse than Jews and Christians. Shia mosques are bombed in Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and other places. Then, even among Sunnis, between Salafis and Madhabis, they keep fighting over the most trivial matters. Imagine if all the energy spent on debating whether a woman's feet are awra, declaring whether celebrating the Prophet's birthday is haram, arguing over wiping over socks during wudu being valid or not valid, was instead channeled into scientific research, technology, or nation building. It just never ends. All this energy spent arguing over dogma gets a society nowhere fast. And to think we're in 2025, you'd think we would have moved on by now as a human species. Islamic law has been resisting change for centuries. One of the most shocking examples of religious influence blocking progress is Iraq's recent move to legalize marriage to 9-year-olds. For many, many years, these religious institutions held sacred Islamic law and kept pushing against reform. Why would we need reform, right? Islam is perfect, they said. For centuries, Islamic clerics and religious scholars have held on to Sharia law as unchangeable, divine law. blocking any modern reinterpretation, resisted efforts to ban child marriage, arguing that it would be un-Islamic, opposed legal equality for women, saying Islam already gives women the rights. Any scholar, activist, or politician pushing for reform risks being declared an apostate. For example, Abu Zaid, an Egyptian professor, he was exiled for calling for Quranic reinterpretation. I wrote about him on my blog. Countries like Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Iran use blasphemy laws to silence the reformers. For example, many people who speak against child marriage or gender inequality are accused of insulting Islam. Even economic progress slows down. Business laws that are based on medieval Islamic finance rules, such as no riba, cause so much harm to a society, but that's a topic for another day. Slavery, which has clear justification in Islamic law, was held onto for so long. Mauritania was the last country to officially abolish slavery, doing so in 1981. However, it wasn't until 2007 that laws were enacted to criminalize slave ownership. Before Mauritania's abolition, several countries in the Arabian Peninsula abolished slavery in the 60s and 70s. Saudi Arabia and Yemen, both of them abolished it in 1962. United Arab Emirates, formerly the Trucial States, abolished in 1963. Oman in 1970. Let's compare this to the Americas. Brazil was the last country to abolish slavery in 1888, nearly 100 years before these Muslim countries. Before I continue, subscribe if you're new here, as I'm committed to ripping apart every facet of Islam to show it's false. Lack of education. Many of these same countries have poor education systems that prioritize religious studies over critical thinking and science. I've seen pictures of textbooks in Pakistan that are completely anti-science, anti-evolution, and let's be honest, anti-thinking. How can anyone who truly learns science not accept evolution? It's as true as gravity. It underpins all of modern biology. Scientists, doctors, and critical thinkers flee to the West because they're stifled in their home countries. For example, most Muslim majority countries lag behind in Nobel Prizes, while Muslim scientists flourish in the West. This isn't a conspiracy or racism. It's because we value intellectual freedom, education quality, and critical thinking. It's not that Muslims are incapable of winning Nobel Prizes. It's that the environments in which they're educated and work often don't foster or reward innovation. In Western countries, scientists can challenge existing ideas or publish controversial research. We invest heavily in scientific research and technology. Universities emphasize questioning and debate, whereas in many Muslim countries, religious studies dominate school curriculums, often at the expense of science, math, and philosophy.
فعل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في سفرة سافرناها. أكمل.
عن عبد الله بن عمرو رضي الله عنهما قال: تخلف عنا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في سفرة سافرناها فأدركنا.
As an example, the Islamic University of Medina is known for its heavy emphasis on Quran memorization and Hadith studies, particularly Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. The goal is not critical thinking or academic research, but to produce religious scholars who strictly adhere to Salafi teachings. It's an indoctrination center. Now, on the other hand, Noman Ali Khan and Yasir Qadhi spoke about how Western universities destroy Islamic belief. Yasir Qadhi had his own deep doubts from studying Islam at Yale.
I have 10 years in Medina. Still don't know anybody who's done something like this. I mean, and I'm being honest with you. You're all Tulab al-Ilm and have studied Islamic sciences. Wallahi, I'll be honest with you. The shubuhat that I was exposed to at Yale, some of them I still don't have answers for. The reason why many of our ulama are so scared to go into these fields is because they are not qualified to answer every single shubha. Honestly, it was not easy because I jumped into the deep end and I did Islamic studies and early Islamic studies. And when you do that type of stuff, your brain really is scrambled completely. And because what the Western education does is it historicizes, contextualizes.
This is not because we are trying to dismantle belief, but rather from the process of investigation, truth is discovered. Societies that adapt and evolve succeed. Those that resist change fall behind. Until Muslim majority countries break free from the grip of religious institutions, they'll continue to lag behind the rest of the world. Included in this category is gender disparity in education. Many Muslim countries still limit education for women, reinforcing their subjugation in society. Afghanistan under the Taliban has outright banned girls from higher education, but even in more moderate countries, cultural attitudes prevent many women from accessing quality education. And what's the predictable outcome of lack of investment in education? Economic stagnation, which also ties into the next problem, which is religious extremism. It's easier to control and brainwash people when they don't have education. In conclusion, the decline facing Muslim society is not due to some external conspiracy, Western intervention, or sabotage. It's self-inflicted harm. Sectarian violence, religious dogmatism, suppression of critical thinking, and education stagnation have all contributed. Blaming the West is convenient, but doesn't lead anywhere. It's time to let go of the stale, nasty, useless dogma that's holding back humanity and embrace freedom to think. I know that I'm doing my part. And on that note, thank you to my patrons for their part in this. You guys are the best. Want to support the channel? Join our community on Patreon. Even just subscribing and liking this video helps. What's your favorite example of how Muslim countries have fallen behind? Leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching. This is your friendly ex-Muslim Abdullah Samir signing out.